picture this. You just missed a massive deadline. A major client is incredibly upset, and to make matters worse, your manager is copied on the email thread where the complaint just landed.
Oh, that is the worst feeling. Just a universally terrifying moment.
Right. You're just staring at a blinking cursor. You know you need to send a message that somehow fixes the relationship, but you also know that choosing the wrong words right now is going to make everything, 10 times worse. Your heart is racing. I mean, we have all been there.
Oh, absolutely. And the instinct in that moment is usually to just start typing excuses as fast as possible to make the discomfort go away.
Which is exactly the wrong move. So today we are taking a deep dive into the high-stakes art and science of the professional apology email in English.
Yeah, it really is a science.
It is. And we have a stack of source material that acts as a comprehensive framework for this. We're going to explore when to send an apology, the 5 essential components of a successful one, the specific language that works, and maybe more importantly, the phrases that just backfire horribly.
Yes, the danger zone phrases. Those are crucial.
Exactly. And we'll get into the cultural nuances of accountability, too. Our mission here is to equip you, the listener, with the exact linguistic tools you need to repair professional relationships after a mistake, without sounding insecure or evasive or, overly defensive.
Because writing an apology in a professional setting, it really feels like walking a tightrope.
Okay, let's unpack this, because it really is a high-wire act of relationship management, isn't it?
It is, yeah. When you commit an apology to writing, you're creating a permanent record. It's an exercise in psychological ownership. It's not simply about having perfect English grammar. It's about signaling to the other person that you respect their time, you value the relationship, and you actually possess the professional maturity to handle your own failures.
Yeah, the idea of a permanent record is honestly a bit intimidating.
It should be.
Right. So before we even analyze how to write this email, we first need to establish if an email is actually the right tool for the job. Our sources draw a very clear threshold based on the severity of the situation.
Yeah, because not every mistake requires a written apology. And on the flip side, some mistakes are far too severe for an email.
Let's start with the middle ground first, the situations that absolutely warrant a formal written apology. The sources list scenarios like a missed deadline that affects someone else's workflow, or an error in delivered work like a financial report, or a miscommunication that causes actual project delays.
Or missing a high-stakes meeting. Basically, the rule of thumb is proportional response.
Proportional response, I like that. The more serious the impact of the mistake, the more formal the apology needs to be.
Exactly.
But I want to talk about the extremes for a second, starting with the minor end. If you are slightly late replying to a low-priority message, or you forget to attach a minor file, but you catch it 2 minutes later, sending a formal, multi-paragraph apology email feels like overkill, right?
Oh, totally. It almost creates a false sense of gravity, like you're making a huge deal out of nothing.
Yeah, a quick verbal mention the next time you speak, or just a one line saying, hey, sorry about the delay, is plenty.
Right, you really don't want to exhaust your professional capital on minor hiccups. But then there's the other end of the spectrum, which is arguably much more dangerous, the catastrophic mistakes.
Okay, yeah. To me, emailing an apology for a massive, catastrophic client error, it's like putting a Band-Aid on a broken leg.
Yeah.
You need triage first, which means you have to pick up the phone.
That is a perfect analogy. Let's look at the psychology behind why we reach for email in those catastrophic moments. We do it because, well, we're scared.
Oh, for sure.
An email serves as a shield. It allows us to control the narrative, hit send, and physically walk away from the computer so we don't have to witness the recipient's immediate anger.
It's self-preservation, pure and simple.
It is, but from the recipient's perspective, it feels entirely different. To the wronged party, especially a client whose business is now damaged by your error, receiving an email first comes across as cowardly.
Ouch. But true.
Right. It signals that you are managing your own anxiety rather than addressing their very real crisis. In severe cases, you make the difficult phone call, you take the heat in real time, and then you use email simply to document the resolution you discussed.
You have to face the music.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's assume we are in that middle ground where an email is the perfect medium. The source material reveals a strict 5-part anatomy for these emails, a structure that essentially prevents the recipient's brain from misinterpreting your intentions.
It is a very rigid framework, and omitting even one of these 5 steps creates a gap that the recipient will inevitably fill with their own frustration.
Right. So step 1 is to acknowledge. And looking at how the sources define this, acknowledging doesn't mean offering a vague nod to, like the situation yesterday.
Mhm.
It means looking the mistake dead in the eye and naming the specific event directly.
Because vagueness breeds mistrust. If you say, I am writing about what happened, the recipient is thinking, do they even know what they did?
Yeah, it sounds like you're dodging it.
Exactly. When you specifically acknowledge it by writing, I am writing regarding the delay in delivering the Q3 report, you establish a shared reality. You prove you comprehend the exact nature of the failure.
Which naturally leads to step 2. Accept responsibility. This is where you use I or we. To take responsibility means actively accepting that the fault, or at least the duty to fix it, belongs to you. No passive language here.
Right, you're taking on the weight of the error. This was my oversight. I should have managed the timeline better. That is the essence of true accountability, being explicitly answerable for your actions and the fallout without deflecting.
Then we arrive at step 3, which is the actual apology itself. Now, the sources insist you must explicitly state the words, I apologize or I'm sorry. But I want to challenge this a little bit.
Okay, go for it.
If I have already acknowledged the specific error, and I've taken full responsibility for it, and my plan to fix it is absolutely fantastic, is it really necessary to type out the literal words, I'm sorry? Doesn't the brilliant resolution speak for itself?
Logically, you would think so. But what's fascinating here is that human neurochemistry doesn't care about your logic.
Really?
Yeah, if you skip the explicit apology, you come across as avoidant and slightly robotic.
But how? I mean, if I fix the problem, shouldn't they just be happy?
Because an apology isn't just about repairing a mechanical error in a spreadsheet. It's about repairing a social fracture. The wronged party is subconsciously listening for those specific words, I apologize, as a social cue of your remorse. It validates their frustration.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, if you omit those literal words, the sender looks like they are stubbornly refusing to humble themselves, which completely undermines whatever great resolution they've prepared.
Okay, so the literal words act as a psychological key to unlock the recipient's willingness to forgive. That actually makes a lot of sense.
It's all about the psychology.
Right. So step 4 is explain. But there is a massive warning light flashing next to this. In the sources, keep it brief, like no more than one sentence.
Because the line between an explanation and an excuse is microscopically thin.
So what's the practical difference when you're actually drafting the email?
It comes down to context versus defense. An explanation provides necessary, emotionally neutral context about a mechanical failure. Something like, there was a miscommunication on my end regarding the time zone. That is an explanation.
Okay, emotionally neutral. Got it.
Right. An excuse, however, attempts to shift the blame or solicit pity. The moment you start writing a paragraph about how your dog was sick, your internet dropped, and you've been working late all week, you have abandoned the apology and you're now asking the victim to feel sorry for you.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a huge difference. Which brings us to the final step. Step 5, resolve. Now, resolution means stating the exact action taken to address the problem. You don't just say, I'll do better. You say, I have corrected the document and attached the updated version here.
Exactly. Acknowledge, accept responsibility, apologize explicitly, explain briefly, and resolve concretely. It's an incredibly efficient sequence.
But having a perfect 5-step structure is completely useless if the actual words you choose trigger the recipient's defensive instincts. That's where we enter what I call the danger zone.
Yes, we have to talk about this.
The sources highlight several specific phrases that instantly backfire, making the recipient angrier than the original mistake did.
These are the toxic phrases that ruin professional relationships on a daily basis, honestly.
Let's start with the most notorious one. I'm sorry if you feel.
Ugh, the conditional apology. It is everywhere.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me. Saying, I'm sorry if you feel offended, or I'm sorry if you feel confused, is essentially apologizing that the other person is overreacting. It is a non-apology disguised as a polite sentence.
It really is.
You aren't taking responsibility for your action at all. You are placing the blame entirely on their emotional reaction.
It completely invalidates their experience. When a recipient reads, I'm sorry if you feel, their brain instantly registers cognitive dissonance. They know they have been wronged, but the sender is subtly implying that the problem is the recipient's sensitivity. It's incredibly condescending.
It's the worst. Another toxic phrase the sources flag is, I'm sorry, but.
Yeah, grammatically and psychologically, the word but is a verbal erasure. It just deletes the significance of everything that came before it.
So if I write, I'm sorry I missed the deadline, but you didn't give me the data in time. The human brain just throws out the first half of that sentence.
Exactly. The recipient doesn't hear the apology. They only hear the counterattack. A genuine apology doesn't have conditions attached to it. If the other person also made a mistake, that needs to be a separate future conversation. You cannot bundle it into your own apology without completely neutralizing it.
Okay, and then there is the trap of passive language.
Mm-hmm.
The absolute worst offender cited here is the classic political maneuver. Mistakes were made.
Ah, yes. The immaculate conception of errors, as if a mistake simply drifted down from the clouds and spontaneously occurred in the office. Nobody did it. It just happened.
Right. It strips away all accountability.
Yeah.
The sources contrast a weak excuse like, I apologize for the delay, we've been very busy and had a lot of internal meetings, against strong ownership like, I apologize for the delay, I should have managed my timeline better.
The difference in how those two people are perceived is night and day.
It really is. But this raises an important question. Why do highly educated, highly competent professionals naturally default to passive language and excuses when they mess up?
I mean, it's fear, right?
Fear of being fired, fear of looking stupid.
Precisely. It is a deep-seated survival instinct. Our primary drive in a corporate environment is to protect our status. When we fail, our instinct is to distance ourselves from the failure to survive. So we say mistakes were made or the software crashed.
Deflecting the blame.
Exactly. But what we fail to realize is that fighting that primal urge and stepping directly into the line of fire to say I messed up is actually the ultimate signal of authority.
Because it shows you aren't easily threatened. You're secure enough in your competence to admit a flaw.
Exactly. Clinging to the illusion of perfection actually makes you look fragile. Owning the mistake makes you look like a leader.
So true. Okay, to prove that this 5-step framework and this strong language actually work in practice, let's deconstruct how this plays out in real-world scenarios. The sources provide 3 specific examples of well-crafted emails. I don't want to just, read them like a textbook. Let's actually look at the mechanics of why they succeed.
Let's do it.
Take the first example. This is an internal email to a manager about missing a Q3 report deadline. So the email goes, Hi, manager. I'm writing regarding the Q3 report. I apologize for missing the deadline this morning. This was my responsibility. I should have flagged earlier that I was behind. I have attached the finished report here. Going forward, I'll send a heads up 24 hours in advance if I anticipate any delays.
What really stands out in that first scenario is the absolute lack of defensive padding.
Right. The sender doesn't spend a paragraph talking about how overwhelmed they are with other projects.
Yeah.
They immediately acknowledge the missing Q3 report, and then they drop this line, This was my responsibility, and I should have flagged earlier that I was behind. Imagine being a frustrated manager and reading that. It instantly disarms you.
Because there is nothing left for the manager to attack. The employee has already claimed the fault. Furthermore, in their resolution step, they don't just say they are attaching the report, they offer future prevention. They state, going forward, I'll send a heads up 24 hours in advance. That rebuilds trust immediately.
It's swift, aggressive ownership.
It really is.
Let's look at this second scenario. Now, this is a much higher stakes, client-facing email regarding an error in a pricing proposal. It reads, Hi, client. I apologize for the error in yesterday's pricing proposal. The incorrect figures were due to a formula error that I missed before sending. I take full responsibility for this. It should not have gone out without a thorough review. I have attached the corrected proposal. Please let me know if you have any questions.
The explanation step in this example is executed perfectly.
Yeah, they write that the incorrect figures were due to a formula error that I missed before sending. It's brilliant because they name the mechanics of the error without diving into a sob story.
Right. It's a formula error. It's sterile. It's clear.
And it's followed immediately by, I take full responsibility for this. It should not have gone out without a thorough review.
That phrase, I take full responsibility, is the gold standard for external communications. Clients don't want to hear about your internal departmental chaos. They want to know that someone is steering the ship. By taking the blame for the lack of review, the sender reassures the client that the oversight is an anomaly, not a systemic incompetence.
Right. Okay, the last example is an everyday scenario, a late reply to an important email. So it goes, Hi, colleague. I apologize for the delay in responding. This email required more than a quick reply, and I should have acknowledged it sooner to let you know I was on it. Here are my thoughts on the project.
That is just a masterclass in emotional intelligence.
Why does that specific phrasing work so well, though?
Because it flatters the recipient while apologizing. By saying this email required more than a quick reply, you are validating the sender's importance. You are essentially telling them, your thoughts are so substantial that I needed to dedicate real mental bandwidth to them.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It turns a negative, which is a delay, into a compliment about the quality of their work.
It's also a perfect example of a follow-up. In a professional context, a follow-up isn't just like a casual check-in. It's a strategic communication meant to close a loop, confirm a resolution, or in this case, revive a delayed thread without making it awkward.
Right, you are meticulously maintaining the connective tissue of your working relationships.
What fascinates me is that none of these 3 example emails are long. You can read any of them in about 15 seconds. It proves that when it comes to apologies, brevity equals confidence, which actually ties perfectly into the cultural expectations surrounding professional apologies, particularly in English-speaking business environments.
Yes, culture heavily dictates the currency of an apology. In American business culture, for instance, accountability is highly prized. If you mess up, you are expected to own it clearly and fix it quickly.
However, there is a catch. The sources note that while apologies are valued, their overuse is viewed as a massive signal of weakness or insecurity.
Yeah, American corporate culture respects assertiveness.
Yeah.
If you are constantly apologizing for simply taking up space, like saying, I'm sorry for bothering you before making a standard, entirely reasonable request for data from a colleague, you are subtly telling your coworkers that your time is less valuable than theirs.
Right. If it is your job to ask for that data, you shouldn't apologize for doing your job.
Exactly. Save the apologies for actual mistakes. Otherwise, you dilute the power of your own words when a real crisis happens.
The sources also offer a brief, really interesting note on British English. They point out that while both I apologize and I'm sorry work well in British corporate culture, I apologize carries a slightly more formal, official weight.
It's a very good nuance for international teams to keep in mind.
Definitely. But the absolute biggest cultural warning in the text is the concept of the sorry spiral.
Oh, the sorry spiral. It is incredibly common, especially for newer professionals or people writing in a second language who are, highly anxious about their tone.
Let's define the sorry spiral for a second. It's when you make a mistake, you apologize for it, the other person accepts the apology, and then you apologize again. And then you bring it up in a meeting on Thursday, like, oh, I'm just so sorry again about the spreadsheet on Monday.
It feels to the sender like they are just being extra polite and showing deep remorse. But if we connect this to the bigger psychological picture, the sorry spiral is actually quite selfish.
Wait, really? Selfish? How so? I mean, they're the ones groveling.
Because extended self-flagellation burdens the wronged party. When you continually apologize, you are essentially demanding reassurance. You are forcing the person whose day you ruined to do the emotional labor of comforting you.
Oh.
They are forced to repeatedly say, no, really, it's fine, don't worry about it, you're great.
Wow.
Oh.
I never thought about it like that. You are literally holding the relationship hostage with your own guilt. You're making your mistake about your feelings instead of their inconvenience.
Exactly. That is why one clear, structurally sound apology, followed by a concrete resolution, is vastly superior to multiple ongoing apologies. The professional goal is to own the mistake, fix the damage, and boldly move forward. Do not force your colleagues to manage your anxiety.
So what does this all mean? Let's bring this comprehensive framework together. First, you have to match the medium to the mistake. If it's a catastrophe, pick up the phone. If it's a standard operational error, utilize the email framework.
Right.
Second, stick strictly to the 5 components. Acknowledge the specific reality, accept the weight of responsibility, apologize with literal words, explain the mechanics briefly without excuses, and resolve with concrete action.
Perfect.
Third, avoid the danger zone. No passive language, no verbal erasers like the word but, and absolutely no, I'm sorry if you feel. And finally, remember that over-apologizing dilutes your authority and actually burdens your colleagues.
It really is all about maintaining your professional equilibrium even when you inevitably stumble.
Because mistakes are guaranteed. You are going to mess up at work. But the next time you do, you now have a precise linguistic playbook to not just fix the error, but actually strengthen the professional relationship in the process. Because honestly, a well-handled mistake, executed with confidence, can build more trust than a flawless record ever could.
That is very true. But I want to leave you with one final, slightly provocative thought to consider.
Fair.
We have spent this entire time dissecting how a clear, fully accountable apology is the best way to rebuild trust. But what happens when a company's internal culture punishes mistakes so severely that these honest five-step apologies become too risky to write?
Oh, that's a tough situation.
Right. If admitting fault directly leads to formal reprimands or getting fired, people will naturally hide behind excuses and passive language out of sheer survival. It raises the question, does the perfect apology actually require an environment of psychological safety first? It's worth looking around your own workplace and asking, how do we really handle accountability here? Are we actually allowed to tell the truth?
That is an incredibly powerful question to ponder, and it entirely shifts how we view the people we work with. Have you ever had to write a difficult professional apology or received one that was done really well? What made the difference? Tell us in the comments. If you're new here, subscribe so you don't miss next week's episode.